Hello, welcome to the Jefferson Educational Society live Facebook feed. Thank you for joining me. My name is Penny Mechley-Porter. I'm a therapist here in Erie, PA. So today I've come back for the a second time to address anger. So we talked about anger on, it doesn't really matter, you can find it if you need to, but anyway, July 10th. And so now we're here to address anger again. The reason is, though I don't get comments on these presentations I've been making, I did go back and notice that the anger presentation had been watched more times than nearly all of the other presentations. So it made me really just kind of think that anger is something that it's helpful for all of us to really kind of figure out our anger a little bit more, understand our anger a little bit better, and even deal with our anger better. So that's why we're back talking about anger today. First, we're going to review the last time. So maybe you've seen, hopefully you've seen it because I'm not going to reteach all that. But we'll review the last session a little bit. Today we will practice again with our anger using the same script I used last time because I like that script. So we will practice again. But there's a lot more I want to talk about with regards to anger and even teach you about anger today. So we'll get started first by reviewing. So some of the things we practiced last time were, well, they're all practices. I used that word already, practice. Some of the things we practiced last time were pausing with our anger and tuning into anger in our own body. That's part of what we practice in all of these mindfulness exercises, is really sitting with what is there, tuning in and sitting with what is there. So we were tuning into anger in our body, noticing for each of us where we feel anger, because we feel it in different places, different people. And it can feel differently. It could feel like a blackness. It could feel red. It could feel no color at all. It could feel in a certain place. It could feel like it's vibrating. It really is different for everybody. We talked about tuning in, bringing compassion to ourselves in our anger. We also talked about discerning our emotions, right? The other emotions that are coming along with the anger, right? I used my anger chart. I can pull it up again, but we use that anger chart. And for those of you who are interested in accessing an anger chart, I do have here, this is a place where you can see the anger chart. Shoot. Okay, there we go. That's a place where you can see the anger chart, and there's a pretty big version if you just kind of scroll down the screen a little bit. If you happen to really like the anger chart like I do, this is the place where the author of the anger chart, the artist, is selling it. So if you'd like to see, if you'd like to buy your own copy, there you go. All right, now we can continue. So bringing compassion to ourselves, discerning the other emotions. Again, if you haven't seen this already, there's my anger chart, actually Borgman's anger chart. And there are all these other emotions that can come along with anger, and it's good to pay attention to that in our lives. Another point from last time, that anger in itself is not bad. It's an indicator that something doesn't feel right or doesn't feel good, but anger isn't intrinsically bad. We often learn that anger is intrinsically bad because we've been exposed to people who get way angry and kind of perhaps blame other people, get mean, get nasty, get physically violent or emotionally aggressive. That's when anger has gone too far, and that person really needs to figure out their anger so they can come back with something that is more helpful to the situation. But anger in itself is not a bad thing. It's nice to figure out what it means and what to do with it. We also talked about when we discern our emotions, what's coming with anger, it can be helpful to be able to communicate better with the people in our lives about what really is going on with us. So that's my review of last time. This time, I'd like to talk about anger, some parts that we didn't cover the first time. One is that anger really can take a toll on me or you whoever's experiencing the anger, it can take a toll, especially when we seem to get kind of like stuck in the anger. Have you ever known someone, or have you yourself ever really kept going back to a situation over and over and over and over and over again in your mind, keep reviewing it, going back there, getting kind of stuck in it? So many of us can say yes to that, and we probably recognize it doesn't help the situation, it doesn't help to resolve anything. We certainly can be stuck in it. And there may be ways that I am perpetuating, keeping myself stuck. And I'm not doing it on purpose. Like, none of this is to like blame me or shame me. No, I'm not doing it on purpose. But I might not have the skills to know how to get unstuck from my anger. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Right. And so as we understand how we're getting stuck in our own anger, or potentially are stuck, or potentially just keeping ourselves jacked up in a way, periodically, maybe we're not stuck. Maybe we just keep ourselves jacked up in a way, and we don't really want to keep ourselves jacked up. We'll understand that a little bit better, and then even figuring out, do we want to address our anger with someone else, or do we want to just figure out how to let it go? And either one, they're both fair options. Either address it or let it go. Although this really could be more than perhaps one session, but that's okay. We're going to get this into one session, and then we can always see if we want to revisit any elements of it. Are there ways I may be, or you may be, right? Are there ways that you could potentially be getting stuck in your anger and even holding on to it and perpetuating it? One way is overthinking. So we really can get caught up in this way of overthinking, kind of going back to it and thinking about it and trying to understand it. Oftentimes we are trying to understand something, but there are certain things that we can't understand. What are the things that we often can't understand? Other people's behaviors, other people's intentions. Sometimes we can't understand our own behaviors even. So lots of things that we end up, we can't understand it, but our brain keeps trying over and over again to understand it, to figure it out. But that kind of overthinking and stewing, what it can do is it can take away my own peace. You may have noticed that when there's a difficult situation that happens and you're angry about it, and you're justly angry. We're not even saying that you're unjustly angry, although that can be a thing, but let's say you're justly angry about the situation. It hasn't played out well, it feels unfair, it feels very difficult for various reasons. But then that anger can take over. What if it's something that happened at work and it happens today? Well, okay, so tonight I'm going to be kind of angry about it probably still. Maybe I'll talk to somebody else about it. Okay, good. But what if tomorrow I'm still super angry about it, and the next day, and it's something that really is taken over maybe my weekend. Today's Friday, maybe it takes over my whole weekend. Maybe I'm really angry about it next week and the following week. And maybe that thing that happened, I don't want it to take over my life that way. I don't want it to take over my insides and my energy so that I'm kind of churning on it. Part of the ways that it really can take over, it's our own thinking. Like I said before, trying to figure something out, our own thoughts about it. They can be thoughts such as, so thinking about a situation that you've been in, perhaps that you've been angry about recently, or maybe it's not recent, maybe it's something from the past, but something that was really difficult for you to let go of and to get over. Maybe you're not over it yet, because oftentimes we're not over these situations because they really were so big. I often, in my mind, do things like, he should have done that differently, or why? There's often this question of why did somebody do that? Why did they do that? Or I would never. do that to somebody else. That can be a big sticking point, is that when someone else does something to me that I would never do to somebody else. That's even a long conversation, but a short version of that conversation is the things that I hold most dear, the values that I hold most dear, are obviously very important because they're the values that I hold most dear. And when someone else doesn't hold those values close, it can be very difficult for me. If I'm a super hard worker just because that's the way I grew up and I just super value hard working, then to be with a coworker who's not a hard worker, it can be extra difficult for me. It can be kind of difficult for everybody. But when I hold hard work as one of my values, and somebody else is not working hard, it can be really hard for me to ever even see where they're coming from. I can get super angry about it. So our own values that we hold very close, perhaps honesty. Maybe I value honesty so much. And if that's one of my biggest values, it's going to be extra difficult for me to work with someone who lies. What's another example? Honesty, hard work, kindness. If I'm someone who really values kindness, and I endeavor always to be kind in all situations, when someone is unkind to me, it makes it extra difficult. So that kind of thought about I would never have done that to somebody, that can be something that keeps us in anger. Something like, she said this, he did this. We can have so many thoughts that we keep coming back to that hold us in the anger. Like I said, we're not saying that the anger isn't valid. It's valid, probably is very valid. But getting stuck in it can really take away my own peace. So I don't want to talk too much because I do want to get to a meditation. I will get to a meditation. So let's talk about an example. I'll just use an example that happened in my life. It's a little bit modified, but I'm going to use an example. At one point, I was working at a job, and I was working with a team, and I thought the team was pretty good. I thought we were on the same page, and we were putting on an event, and we had it planned out, and we knew what was supposed to happen during the event. Then, when it came to time to have the event, it didn't play out quite that way. One of the team members kind of went off track and did things that the rest of us didn't really think should have happened. I know I'm being kind of general about this, but she did some stuff that we didn't think really should have happened. Indeed, she did some things that there was someone who was supposed to be my assistant who'd been assigned to these tasks that I was also assigned to. And this other person kind of took that assistant and made this person help them with some other tasks that we weren't even supposed to be doing. So it undermined the goal of the event. It certainly undermined me. And then ultimately, this other person who was being difficult ended up misrepresenting me specifically, basically kind of lied about something I had done. And so I found this to be a very difficult situation. I was super angry about it. And in addition to being angry, I was surprised, and I did feel betrayed. I was surprised and betrayed by what this other woman had done. It wasn't what we had planned to do. I was also confused. I was disappointed. I had a sense of horror. Horror is not on here. That's what I'm adding right now. But I was a sense of horror at how she'd gone off the reservation. That's a funny expression. How she had gone off the plan. There was a sense of horror about it. Not to mention frustration. Not to mention hurt. I remember feeling hurt, especially when she lied about me. So this was somebody that I worked with sometimes. I didn't work with all of the time. And as I explored this for myself, I really needed to establish for myself whether it's something I wanted to address. Okay, as a therapist, I'm saying this part. When we just hang on to the anger, it's not really helpful. And so, what do we do with that anger? Either we can let it go or we can address it with that person. That's to me some kind of healthy choices about what we do with that anger. So, as I explored this in this situation that had happened, since I wasn't going to work with that person anymore, and she was kind of pretty far removed from me, I personally decided I was not going to address it with her. If I had been intending to work with that person more closely, more regularly, I believe I would have addressed it directly with her. So for me, since I decided I was not going to address it directly with her, and there can be other reasons we don't address something with someone directly. One is it can be overwhelming and difficult. It can make us feel anxious. Perhaps they're not a safe person. So I decided I wanted to let it go because I didn't want to have all of that churning inside of me. And that is what I decided, and I have let it go. And I say that as if it's so easy. No, it's not easy. Part of the way that I let it go is I just decided I wasn't going to keep thinking about it, and I wasn't going to keep telling everybody about it, right? So there had been a way that I went home that day and I told my husband about the situation, and I told somebody else about the situation. Talking about something over and over and over again can keep us stuck. So I decided I wasn't going to keep talking about it over and over and over again. And I was going to let it go and focus on other things. And using mindfulness, I now have skills to bring myself back to the present moment, focus on the present moment, and I'm more able to let something go when I want to let something go. So that situation, I've decided I wasn't going to keep thinking about it. I wasn't going to keep talking about it. I was going to let it go. And that was helpful. So that was a lot of talking. I hope it was helpful. Now let's get to the part of our 25 minutes together where we practice a mindfulness exercise. I would like you to, hopefully you're already sitting comfortably in your chair. Close your eyes. Allow the chair to support you. So relax into the chair, allowing it to support you. Take some deep breaths, completely filling your torso with air, and then completely release the breath. At your own pace, another couple of deep breaths. Deep in, complete release. Perhaps one more. Another deep in, and complete release. Good. Back to your regular breathing. Think back to a time when you experienced anger. Maybe recently, maybe farther back. It's easier to practice with a smaller rather than a huge situation. So pick something smaller. Envision and experience what happened. Allowing yourself to feel the anger again. Allowing the feeling to get as strong as possible within a safety zone. We don't want you to feel like you got to throw something or lash out. Allow yourself to feel that anger. Notice in your body where you're feeling the anger. with an inquisitive, curious mind, noticing where you feel it, how it feels, how big it is. Does it take over a whole big area? How small it is? Maybe it's a pinpoint of anger. Noticing the various sensations associated with the anger. I'll be quiet here briefly. You've been exploring the location of the anger in your body and the sensations, the feelings of it. I'd also like you to notice what arises. If you're aware, are there other emotions that are there? I'll list some. These may not be there, but oftentimes if I list an emotion that really is there for you, you'll feel that. You'll be like, yes. And the ones that don't feel true for you are like, no. As you're sitting with your anger, see if any of these kind of fit. There could be many. Sad, fear, frustration, guilt, disappointment, confusion, embarrassment, betrayal, surprise, jealousy, hurt, emotional hurt, pain, physical pain, or emotional, anxiety, shame, again, I'll be quiet as you notice the other emotions that are there. Now I'd like you to notice the thoughts that you normally have when you're thinking about this situation. Notice those thoughts and whether they kind of charge your anger even more. Keep noticing those thoughts. Then I'd like you to come back to your breath. We've explored the we've explored locations in our body, we've explored emotions that we're feeling, and now we've explored the thoughts. And we don't have to do any specific thing with these. It's an exploration, an openness, and awareness. Coming back to your breath. Nice in breath. A nice exhale. And then allowing that anger to drain out of your body as if you're like a balloon that's been opened. It doesn't pop, it doesn't burst. Allowing that anger to drain out, like out of a balloon or out of a swimming pool. You're allowing that anger to drain out of all parts of your body, allowing it to drain out. Again, coming back to your breath, allowing the anger to drain. Coming back to noticing yourself sitting in your chair. You're relaxed in your chair. Well, you might be less relaxed now. Allowing yourself to relax again. And then opening your eyes with this awareness of your anger. That practice of allowing the anger to drain out can be a good practice. The practice of not coming back to it and thinking about it all the time, talking about it all the time, not coming back to all of that is also a good practice. Deciding perhaps if you do want to address the situation with someone. Perhaps you do, perhaps you don't. But being able to let go of it and not keep it so alive can be a helpful thing in all of our lives. I just want to say here at the end that one of the other things that can be difficult about letting it go has to do with the thoughts. And as you are reflecting on the thoughts that you have, oftentimes our thoughts go to thinking somebody did it on purpose to hurt us, to undermine us. It can feel so very, very personal. And though it's possible somebody did it on purpose to hurt us, if they did, we don't necessarily want them to take over our whole weekend and our whole next couple of weeks, even if they did do it on purpose. But another thing is often it's not on purpose. Oftentimes somebody is caught up in their own angst about life, their own issues with their own life, and they're acting out of their own angst and their own issues. And it often is so much far less personal than it feels. And if you can find some phrase to tell yourself that will help you understand it's not so personal and that person has their own issues, if there's something you can tell yourself to help yourself let go of all of the overthinking, that's another good strategy. So thank you so much for joining us today. I'm sorry I went over. It's 28 minutes. I try to stick to 25. If any piece of this was extra helpful, especially during the meditation, you can always go back to this mindfulness exercise or meditation, and you can always pause and spend some more time there. Perhaps I rushed you. Perhaps you wanted to spend more time there. You can come through this and pause, spend your time, and then continue when you are ready. Please join us next week, Friday at noon at the Jefferson Educational Society live Facebook feed. I look forward to seeing you then.